And have
It's fine. It's fine. Maybe someone in your family could use it.
doubt it. My whole family's white.
It's fine.
Okay, so that skit, or that clip, was pulled from the sickle cell cure skit that was done on SNL, I think last month or maybe in November. I don't quite remember. But for those of you who know, it's controversial. If y'all want to know the controversy, go look it up. The reason that I have pulled this particular clip is because the actor says, well, I'm white. No one in my family would have use for a sickle cell cure. And I just want to talk briefly about the fact, or really putting forth the question, why is sickle cell categorized as a Black illness still in 2024? Why is it still categorized as being a mostly Black illness, and the great majority of our country, really a great majority of society, believes that sickle cell is only founded in Black people and maybe Latino and Hispanic folks? So let's understand something. First and foremost, sickle cell is the world's largest hereditary illness. It is not necessarily it's not at all a Black illness, but it is an illness of migration. It's an illness of trade. It's an illness of war. All of that. It is an illness that is basically an evolutionary trait to protect people from malaria. And I'm not going to get into all of that except to say that any virus you have requires a healthy host in order to get in and multiply and do what it's going to do. People with sickle cell, our cells only live 10 to 20 days. That's 1/10 as long as healthy cells, which live 90 to 120 days. So when you consider that, viruses don't have a lot of time and space and opportunity to get into our bodies, multiply, and take over, and then cause all kinds of crazy. But the reason that sickle cell is not only was said to be just a Black disease, but really is still being promoted as such, quite simply, is because it supported the United States political rule of segregation. Period. Dot. Sickle cell has been studied, rather, let me put it another way. Sickle cell from 1840 to 1956. We did not go more than a decade or so without some kind of advancement in sickle cell. So beginning in 1840, we start to see records of autopsies on slaves and the notation of things such as missing spleens or, diseased kidneys, broken down joints, just signs of things such as avascular necrosis, signs of sickling within the organs. And these curious minds who are laying the foundation for what is now our medical system, our research system, we're really trying to figure out, why is it that I'm seeing this in certain populations of the slave population, right? Because it behooved sellers of slaves at the time to know their product. So if you're a breeding farm and you notice that the children coming from this woman and this man are producing children that they're not making it to 5. And if they do, they're frail and they seem to be just useless but resilient. And there's pain and they're exhausted. Like you're going to try to figure out what's going on in that bloodline. Same as you would with a cow or a pig or anything else, because you have to consider the categorization of Black folks as livestock back then. So it was in their interest to study us. Not only that, but you also have to consider the ideology that the Europeans had when it came to the Atlantic slave trade. Bottom line, if they are ordained by God to be the rulers of this land, of this earth, then they are also ordained by God to place people in certain levels of society, from the king, who is the representative of God. He is now granting titles, land, money, and riches to people who are loyal to him. It's following a bloodline, and it's trickling all the way down to slaves. So, by that ideology and figuring in social Darwinism, white people were ordained by God to show savages how they're supposed to live, be in real civilization. And they did this through Christianity and brutalization, period. So, lack of knowledge, no reading, can't be married, don't have a birth certificate, things like that. As time goes on, they now are looking for physical evidence of this ideology. So you start seeing things like phrenology pop up. And phrenology is really it's the study of the head and the space between your features. So between your eyes, the width of your nose, all of these things that are used to determine really your ability, your intelligence, cognitive thinking, you know, just stuff like that. And for decades, it's used to divide people into various classes based upon these measurements. Go look at South Africa and get a real good idea of what I'm talking about. Now, along with phrenology, right? So we're studying the head and saying you're not intelligent enough to elevate beyond that of a slave or a servant. And then we're looking at the body and we're saying it's incomplete. That, again, stuff's missing. Things that should be there are not there. And from 1840 to 1956, there are steady advancements being made in the studying of sickle cell. And when they decide that sickle cell is truly a hereditary illness, it's the world's first discovered molecular disease. When they discover sickle cell in children and then discover sickle cell trait, all of this is happening between like 1920 and 1950. So now sickle cell is a hereditary illness, but it's only found in Black folks. We already know that Black people are indigenous to the continental U.S. We are a created people. We have more in common with Europeans than we do with most people on the vast continent of Africa. Our government knew this. Our scientists knew this. And yet, they still have not pushed to recategorize sickle cell as being a disease that everyone can get. And I wonder why.